To most of the world, this is esports.
10 seconds, deny the plan. That's
oh
the
no!
bomb. That's
It's
the
falling
bomb.
apart!
That's going to be
It's
it!
only Nico, there's no time! He just has to watch that clock tick down! This is it! Navi! I've taken the major!
It's played on PC with mouse and keyboard or on console with controller and gamepad. But for an entirely different part of the world, this is esports.
Vampire Esports might have their run cut down here, but they have done enough. Only Ravenclaw left, hits the deck for a drop shot, and that is the end of their story. But it is now back-to-back, and Seoul going head-to-head. The team from India, 4 players alive, with a heavy elimination game, find the final. But we are gonna go over to the stage for the trophy ceremony.
Mobile esports have exploded over the past few years, in large part thanks to one company, Qualcomm. But who is Qualcomm? And what do they have to do with us going from playing Brick Breaker on our Blackberries to competing on LAN with our phones?
They're going for it! Don't even wait for the Elder! There it is! Nova and a Prime Gaming ace will do it! This is them blasting through the grand finals and engraving their names into the cosmos as your first ever icons!
Okay, so before we get started, I just want to say a huge thank you to Qualcomm Technologies and the entire Snapdragon Elite Gaming team for making this episode possible. Mobile esports are on the come up, and we are super excited to be sharing this new scene with you all. Today's video is brought to you by the Snapdragon Elite Gaming team. For champion level gameplay that's sure to leave you feeling triumphant, make sure you check out the brand new Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, powered by the fastest Snapdragon ever and available right now. Okay, back to the video. So more people game on their phones than any other platform in the world. Some of your favorite games may have been downloaded millions of times on PC and console, but mobile is actually just on an entirely different level. We're talking billions of installs of games that are a lot like what you're already playing on PC. Hell, nowadays you can play full-blown battle royales and MOBAs on your phone. I know some of you are probably a little too young to remember playing games on your parents' Blackberry, but I sure do. So how did we get here? Well, there were a few major advancements that really allowed developers to push the limits on what games on mobile could be. And Qualcomm has been a big part of those changes. They're a semiconductor company based in San Diego who for years wanted to improve graphics and make these games look as realistic as possible. And despite being known for mobile technology, Qualcomm has actually been around in esports for quite some time. If you're a longtime LCS viewer, you probably remember that TSM used to be called TSM Snapdragon, as in Qualcomm Snapdragon. These guys are OGs, but to really make an impact in esports, they had another problem to solve first. You see, esports have always been primarily played on PC and console, and Qualcomm were primarily focused on making mobile games look better and better, which makes sense because for many casual players, graphics are king. A lot of modern AAA titles at 4K are absolutely breathtaking. But when it comes to esports, refresh rates are actually a lot more important. It's crucial to maintain high FPS when players compete at the biggest events in the world. Qualcomm also wanted to solve problems that PC esports players faced for folks playing on their own mobile platform. But there were still tons of other problems for them to overcome, like power supply. You see, modern graphics cards consume quite a lot of power. How much power, do you ask? Well, I don't know, but that does sound like something that my good friend Colten would know. Right, Colten? Right?
And now, the guy who actually knows what he's talking about.
Hey everybody, your friendly neighborhood guy who used to sell phones, back again. They don't call me the guy who actually knows what he's talking about for nothing. Yes, desktop and even laptop graphics cards tend to draw a lot of power, but let's face it. Lately, Nvidia has turned that dial up to 11. An RTX 4090, for example, can draw roughly 450 watts, so NVIDIA recommends an 850 watt power supply. But today we aren't actually talking about computers. So how much power can your phone's comparatively tiny battery pump out? Well, it's roughly 3.5 watts. Yep, 3.5. And it's actually been that way for ages now. Ever since the release of the first iPhone back in 2007. Really? You're gonna make me use an iPhone reference? Who wrote this? Smartphones have all basically delivered the same amount of power, give or take a couple of watts. And because of this, 30 FPS games have stayed the norm while PC and even console gaming has surged ahead. So Qualcomm wanted to change that. But even if they got games to run at 60 FPS on 60Hz displays, that's an incredibly narrow tightrope to walk. They wanted to improve displays and GPUs without drawing obscene amounts of power.
So over the past decade, our mobile GPUs on Snapdragon have increased by orders of magnitude. Think about it, we've gone from megaflops to teraflops. That's a 10,000x increase in performance. And what that means is we can now run all the latest desktop features, like hardware accelerated ray tracing, where you can basically do tens of billions of ray intersects per second, all within an average of a 3.5 watt power envelope. And we include the latest game engines, like Unreal Engine 5 now. And that's all running on a device that fits in your pocket. Pretty amazing.
And finally, in 2018, Qualcomm Snapdragon was the first chipset to support a 90 Hz display.
For years, even on desktop, you were always maxed out, and even in console, you're always maxed out at 60 FPS. And that had to do with the display refresh rate. How fast could it update the display? Even though the GPU could render at a higher frame rate. And so what we've seen in the last 5 years is breaking that whole barrier, that boundary, which completely revolutionized the next generation of mobile gaming.
But Qualcomm didn't stop at 90. These days, some smartphones support 120 and even 144 Hz displays. OLED panels have also allowed games to run much more smoothly on mobile devices thanks to their ultra-low response time. And that's a technology we're just starting to see in high-end gaming monitors. Pair all this with massive improvements to mobile game engines like Unreal in terms of both performance and availability, and gaming on your phone is starting to look pretty fully featured. And it's not even just esports titles. Major franchises are being developed from the ground up for mobile. The rise of mobile gaming has been pretty monumental around the world. We went from playing games on tiny, low-res displays with Blackberry scroll wheels to 4K FPS games on touchscreens. What a time to be alive.
And that was the guy who actually knows what he's talking about.
Thanks, Colten, but getting mobile games to run on 90 FPS wasn't the only big thing to happen back in 2018. I can't believe I'm saying this, but let's talk about Fortnite. As 4G networks became more accessible, battle royales like Fortnite and PUBG dominated the mobile gaming space in 2018. Players could now compete with each other online on their phones with extremely low network latency, even if they weren't at home. And thanks to all these changes, mobile gaming and esports have grown astronomically in some parts of the world, where phones are beating PC and consoles as the most popular gaming platform. Titles like PUBG, Call of Duty, Wild Rift, and plenty more are absolutely taking over. A huge reason for this is accessibility. Not everyone has access to a fancy gaming PC, but pretty much everyone has a smartphone. The average person probably only has a normal 60 Hz 1080p monitor, and chances are that their phone display is better in nearly every way. It likely has a higher pixel density, higher resolution, higher refresh rate, and better response time. You don't have to make nearly as many sacrifices to play games on your phone these days. You can run them at high frame rates with features like ray tracing without losing performance. And all this allowed mobile esports to blow up over the last few years. And in partnership with ESL, Qualcomm is working to make it even bigger.
What if the thrill of competitive gaming and the excitement of elite competition were accessible at any time from any player's pocket anywhere around the globe? Introducing the Snapdragon Pro Series, the world's premier global, multi-genre mobile esports competition
The Snapdragon Pro Series is now the world's largest mobile esports platform. We want to make mobile esports accessible to everyone all over the world. And so we have people at all skill levels now that can play esports on mobile. And we're seeing all kinds of people play in all these different regions and globally in these tournaments. So we wanted to make it more accessible for mobile esports competition and community.
I think they've done it. They can end it through bot lane as well. The Turkish scene, rise for your champions, Parla. They've done it.
Absolutely incredible stuff. The Snapdragon Pro Series Finals winner, live in Valencia, will be Parla. A magnificent performance for the Turkish team, who have turned up and dominated their way through this final.
Mobile esports have grown tremendously thanks to huge leaps forward in the hardware that powers them.
To date, we've shipped over 3.5 billion mobile GPUs in the market that are available on smartphones today. I think a lot of people don't realize how much we do on GPUs or how many GPUs we've shipped, right? So we've shipped more mobile GPUs than even on desktop. Which is a pretty amazing statistic when you think about it.
Most esports pros are using massive PCs that hold all their components and keep them cool. So the fact that Qualcomm has found ways to run full-blown esports titles on smartphones is remarkable.
A lot of our technology, we've actually gotten a lot of requirements and feedback from pro esports players. How do you make the device better? How do I get more faster response times? And how do I get completely rid of motion blur? And so a lot of the technologies that we built and customized have been in mind for that pro esports player. We really then invested a lot in helping grow these mobile esports leagues with a lot of our partners and bringing more people to mobile. And now that you've seen that transition where more people are playing on mobile esports than any other platform.
If you're like us and you've been living and breathing esports for years, mobile esports may not be the first scene that springs to mind. But for decades, gamers have competed on whatever platform is available to them. It's why fighting game communities sprung up around arcades or later home consoles. It's why kids flocked to PC bangs in Korea. And now, for millions of people around the world, the most accessible gaming device fits straight in their pocket. That's gonna change things. It already has. We don't know what the future will bring, but right now, for mobile esports, it looks bright.
Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, hit the sub button and ring the notification bell. For unique bite-sized videos you won't find anywhere else, hit us up on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.